Hey everyone, we're just about to get started. Hi everyone, my name is Rob Koyfin. I'm founder of CEO of Koyfin. On the line on this webinar, you also have Connor McNeil, who is product manager at Koyfin, responsible for a lot of the great features that you see every day. Also handles our Twitter. If you aren't following our Twitter account at Koyfin Charts, definitely recommend that you do. Great content there. And Connor's going to be handling some of the Q&A. So if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to pop it into the chat window, and Connor will do his best to answer it. And if it requires kind of like a demo or screen share, then I could answer that at the end of the call as well. And just jumping into our agenda for some housekeeping items. So this webinar is being recorded, so you don't have to take notes frantically. We will send you a recording of this webinar, so if you miss something, you'll be able to watch it again. Some of the features that we'll discuss here are entitled in different ways. There are different kind of groups of people on here. Some people are on advisor pro tier. Some people are just kind of starting out with Koyfin. If you do need a 7-day free trial, please email us help@koyfin.com. We'll set you up for a 7-day free trial, so you could experience kind of the features and really try them out firsthand. So definitely take us up on that. I'm going to kind of go over just on this webinar a bunch of functionality that we've released over the past couple of months. Really has to do with financial advisor workflows from client portfolios, reports, and client proposals, how to ingest custom data series into Koyfin, for example, SMAs or hedge funds or private assets. Then we're going to talk about some upcoming releases, so some of the stuff that we are working on at Koyfin. And then we'll do a short survey in terms of what you want out of Koyfin, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end and answer your questions live. So with that, let me kind of start going through the webinar. So as many of you know, this is the great homepage of Koyfin. Unfortunately, we're not able to do anything about this market drop. We just kind of provide you the data and analytics, and it's everyone's job here to kind of try and navigate that. I'm going to focus a lot on portfolios in this webinar, which are located here under portfolio tools. So let me kind of start here with model portfolios. This is where advisors can manage their models. We do have sort of two types of portfolios. One are model portfolios, and the other type is client portfolios. Model portfolios are allocation based, so percentages, and client portfolios are share based. So think of it as number of shares. And so model portfolios will have percentages, they'll have rebalance periods, whereas client portfolios will have a position like 1,000 shares and will be static in terms of positions. So in model portfolios, kind of like one thing I wanted to highlight is the ability to choose your columns here. So we have a ton of columns here where you can choose kind of like what you want displayed. So this is what I have displayed in my columns. I have my relative return, and I have my downside capture, my dividend yield. But you'll have a lot more columns here under price and performance. So if you wanted any sort of annualized return over the, let's say, past 15 or 20 years, you can go ahead and select that. Or if you wanted the annualized return, which creates the CAGR for you, you can select that. So before that was the absolute, this is the annualized. And then under asset specific, we also have kind of like all these different model portfolio data points that you can now add to your home screen. So if I wanted to kind of maybe add the Kalmar ratio, which probably don't ask for the definition of what that ratio is, but if you wanted to add that and you wanted to kind of sort your portfolio by that, you can do that as well pretty easily. So a lot of different ways to slice and dice your portfolio. The other thing that we introduced on the homepage is the ability to kind of download data. So you can download data easily, both on an aggregate level and inside the portfolio. So you now have this download button, which is pretty useful. And we also have the ability to look at kind of these portfolios on a scatter plot. So this nice little show hide graph is here. And then you can sort of see your portfolios on different dimensions. So let's say I wanted to look at the relative 1-year return. That's the 1-year return versus the benchmark, which is specified when you create the portfolio. I could see kind of which portfolios are outperforming, which ones have the highest Sharpe ratio. And you can see kind of now they start appearing in quadrants. This graph is super flexible, so I could kind of zoom in, zoom out. I can see what all these different portfolios are. And I can even kind of get into the nitty gritty of all these details. So that's kind of like on a high level what we have for model portfolios. Wanted to kind of jump in here and show you some functionality that we have in terms of new functionality for model portfolios. We've basically introduced kind of a couple of different things that I want to highlight. So one is this ability to have sleeves. So for those of you that are managing sleeves and incorporating them in model portfolios, we have that ability now. Just wanted to highlight that. So right now I have my sleeve here, and I think I clicked on it by mistake instead of opening it. I have my sleeve here, which I can use this button to open and close. And the way that you kind of create a portfolio with a sleeve is when you're in edit portfolio, when you're inputting these tickers, you can now input a sleeve. So let's say I'm gonna get rid of this growth just to show you how this works. I have my equity tickers, my ETFs, my mutual funds. I now can input a model portfolio. So again, if I put in my growth portfolio, which is a model portfolio, I could give it a 10% allocation. And now that becomes just a holding in my portfolio, which is just like any other holding. And you can also have dynamic allocations as well. So if I have something which maybe I rebalanced in 2019, at the end of the month, I can change these dynamic allocations accordingly as well. So we'll have sleeves. These sleeves feed into all the analytics just like a position. So we look through the sleeve in terms of giving you all this kind of performance analytics. So when you're looking at the style box for equity and fixed income, this includes all the underlying information for that sleeve as well, which is really helpful. As I mentioned before, just real quickly, we do have this download button, so you could download any of the data now. So if you wanted to download the performance or anything like that, we have that as well. And we do have this really kind of nifty, kind of related to what I mentioned before. We have a scatter plot. So this is the scatter plot functionality where you can display now the positions. Before we displayed all the model portfolios. Now I'm displaying the positions and seeing what they look like on an XY scatter plot. So if I wanted to here display it on total return versus Sharpe ratio, or select whatever I want to display it on, I can do that as well. If I wanted to, for example, we have PEs for ETFs. So if I wanted to look at the PE for ETFs or for my stocks, we don't have it for mutual funds, but we have it for stocks and ETFs. You can do that as well and look at valuation or look at that scatter plot in any kind of dimension that you choose to. So those are some of the enhancements we made to model portfolios. Just running through all the real quick functionality that we've had for those users that are a little bit newer to the platform. The summary exhibit, all the exposures here, including equity sectors or regions or countries. So being able to kind of see these different exposures for the portfolio versus the benchmark, fixed income sectors, credit quality, maturity, seeing the performance chart over time. So seeing the performance, the historical returns, seeing the historical returns both on a period basis and as a time series over time. All the risk metrics, the drawdown, the look-through matrix. So this is looking through each one of these positions, including the sleeve, and then giving you that kind of like X-ray view of what it would look like or what it looks like for the portfolio. So here, even though I own a bunch of ETFs and a bunch of sleeves, my kind of like biggest exposure here is Lindy because it's about 4.6% of XLB, and I also own it in some other things. So this will give you a really nice way of looking at what this looks like in terms of on a single stock level when you do an X-ray. Kind of jumping ahead from model portfolios, now touching some new functionality on client portfolios. So client portfolios, again, is where you have positions. We just released a new feature where you can actually create portfolios. So before we just had a flat set of accounts where you had just a list of accounts. You can now aggregate these accounts into portfolios. And we're going to be rolling out functionality where you can aggregate portfolios into households. So this is a really cool feature that a lot of you have been asking for in terms of how do I aggregate or how do I combine different portfolios into groups. And so we recently released this feature. So my Bobby Jones here portfolio has Bobby Jones 401k, has Bobby Jones IRA. If I click into it, I can see now this edit dialog allows me to kind of add more and more accounts. So if I wanted to add a third account, and this, let's say, would be the 529 plan, I can then add different positions. And let's say we just have SPY as my account here, a little less. Save, I would save that portfolio. And now when I go back to my client portfolios, my 529 here is under my Bobby Jones portfolio. So really good way to group things. I know that's mostly how you all think about your clients in terms of portfolios and households. So we're definitely moving towards letting you organize your client portfolios in that way. The other cool thing now is that you can run a report on a portfolio, right? So I have, if I'm in Bobby Jones and I click create report, this is now a way for me to use that portfolio, which is comprised of 3 accounts in my report. So let me actually do that. I'll show you, for example, if I'm creating a proposal for a client, let's say it's Bobby. So my proposed portfolio, I'm going to use the model that I had up before, which was my aggressive growth. And now for my kind of comparison portfolio, the secondary portfolio, I'm going to use Bobby Jones now portfolio. Just want to show you that if I type Bobby Jones, I'll have Bobby Jones portfolio and then Bobby Jones accounts. So you do have to select portfolio if you want the overall portfolio. I will click next. My client name is Bobby Jones, portfolio report proposal. And then I'm going to just upload a logo here just so you all can see on what this looks like. I think, let's see, desktop. I'm going to use my friends at XYPN. Let's say that's where I work. By the way, you can also change the end date here. So this is something that we created that's new. So if you want the performance to kind of like we're now March 25th, which is not month end. Let's say you wanted everything to be as of March 28th, which is month end. You could do that. And then everything in the report will be as of, February 28th. It would be as of February 20th. So I'm just going to go back here and choose March 25th. And now this is kind of like where my main report dialog, where I get to choose kind of like what pages go into the report. So for all you who aren't familiar with this, this is really kind of like relative to some of the other alternatives there on the marketplace for reports and proposals. This is really a nice looking, lightweight, attractive version of a report that you can really feel good about presenting to clients. But I can customize this report to kind of like some dimensions in terms of style. I have my logo here. And then in terms of my pages of what actually goes to my report, I can kind of go through here and choose what's in my report. So we have, anything from like comparison summary or holding summary or equity exposure. The one thing that I do want to highlight that we rolled out, we've had kind of like a lot of advisors tell us like, hey, I want to customize some of these exhibits because maybe in my proposal, I want to talk about fees and risk, but not performance. And so you could do that now. You can click this customize button, and that would bring you to a page where you can actually kind of like check off different things. So let's say I didn't want performance because performance maybe is not a topic that is interesting for this portfolio. Maybe it's all about risk. And maybe kind of like the yield is not important. I would check that off. I will click Save Changes. And so now this exhibit only contains the items that I want to show. So this is a really nice way to be able to show those items and really focus on what you want to communicate to the end user. Just going through the exhibit real quick, we have a nice holdings summary, holdings matrix. This is the look-through X-ray of the current and the proposed portfolio. A lot of information here on exposure versus the benchmark, or sorry, versus the second portfolio. So this proposed versus current, fixed income exposure. We did create recently a small change, these two style boxes. So before there only used to be one for the proposed portfolio. So now we do have two style boxes side by side, comparing the two things. The performance chart of the two portfolios, the risks, stock X-ray. This is a new exhibit that I definitely want to highlight, which has gotten a lot of traction from advisors. So I know a lot of you are speaking to prospective clients. Fees is something that is a selling point for a lot of advisors, especially when they're coming over from other brokerages where there's a lot of fees on the funds. There's a high kind of advisory fee. So this exhibit is really meant to kind of tell that story or illustrate what the proposed fees are versus the current fees. So you could customize this exhibit and make some assumptions. So portfolio notional value, let's say this is a $5 million portfolio. And then we kind of input an assumed rate of return over time. And then the primary portfolio that you're proposing, let's say it's a 1% fee. And let's say they're currently paying a 1.5% fee. Save those changes. And so what this exhibit does is it basically walks you through kind of like the current portfolio. This is what's in there. The client is paying kind of 0.24% in fees. The advisory fee is 1.5%. That's what we put in. So the total fees are about 1.74%. And then we put a dollar value on there. Here you're paying $87,000 per year for this portfolio, $5 million portfolio. Whereas in the proposed portfolio, the fee structure is much lower. We're paying kind of a weighted average fund fee of about 0.1%. Our advisor fee is 1%, and that's 1.1%. And I think what this exhibit does really well is it puts some numbers behind percentages because, as you know, percentages sometimes kind of are difficult to interpret by the human brain. So here you're paying 55,000, here you're paying 87,000. You're saving kind of $31,000 or $32,000 per year. And then we sort of illustrate the long-term savings, assuming that you're able to invest that money in the long term. So over 5 years, over 10 years, you're actually saving this client $441,000 in fees, which is a real number for a $5 million portfolio. So this is a really good way to have that conversation of illustrating the fees and what the current fee structure is versus the proposed fee structure. And you can change these assumptions to kind of fit in terms of what the client is being charged today, and really kind of tailor this to the story that you want to tell to the prospect. The other kind of small thing that I want to highlight is we've had some advisors ask us about the cash sensitivity exhibit and the fee sensitivity exhibit. So these two exhibits are for a hypothetical 60-40 portfolio, just what a different cash drags are for 0% cash, 10% cash, 20% cash, and then also for different fee levels, kind of how these portfolios will grow over time. So now we just give you the ability to change these fees. So we've heard some advisors want to use like 0.5 and 1 and 1.5. So you can kind of specify the different fees that go in here in case the numbers don't really match the story you're trying to tell. So a lot of flexibility there on being able to kind of modify some of these exhibits. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to go over kind of like some of the enhancements we want to make to reports and client proposals. And we have some really big, cool ideas coming up there. The last thing I wanted to kind of touch on is the custom data that we released. So I know a lot of folks here deal with private assets, they deal with alternative data, and today we don't have any connections to outside kind of alternative data providers, but we do now allow you to ingest or upload custom data into Koyfin to be able to excuse me, to be able to analyze it and to be able to graph it and do portfolio analytics on it. And so the way this works is we have new custom data functionality. You could find it in several places. So here under my data, you have a custom data tab here. Maybe a little bit easier to kind of find it is here under security analysis. You have custom data, and then you have this kind of create custom data series. So here we basically we allow you to upload a time series of total returns. It's not percentage returns, it's actually the level of total returns. So make sure you're converting or you're uploading that data set. I know some folks have asked to upload just returns, or they've asked to for some enhancements, but version 1 is just you upload a portfolio of returns. So let me call this my bond SMA. My ticker is going to be bond SMA. Equity allocation to be fixed income. Instrument type is going to be SMA. This currency should be on if you want to use this in a portfolio. The reason you would turn it off is if you're uploading like iPhone sales, or sorry, number of iPhones or something like that, which is not a currency. But most of the time for advisors, this currency would be on. I would click upload CSV. I would kind of choose my CSV with different kind of price points. Sorry, with total return levels. And again, this is since 05. I would click next, select this value and date, key, click submit. And this would basically kind of upload this data and generate this CSV. So this is my bond SMA. This is the time series now. I would click create. And now I can use that data series in throughout the platform. So if I wanted to, for example, graph this data series, bond SMA, I can go there and graph this data series along with my model portfolios or anything else. So let me actually compare versus SPY. So over the past 5 years, bonds have not done well. So that does not look great. Over the past year, over the past kind of like 3 months, that series is going to be flipped. But this is a way to display it in the graph. I could also use it in a model portfolio. So let's say if I created a new model portfolio and I would do like a 50-50. And so let's say I do SPY and I do my bond SMA, equalize the weights, rebalance this maybe annually, and then create a portfolio. So this would be my kind of like bond SPY, and this would use the custom data that I'm using from the SMA, and it would kind of like show up in all the exhibits as well, where the asset allocation is appropriate. By the way, I could do this without a benchmark. So this would just show me my allocation without a benchmark. So really powerful feature. Custom data is shareable. So if you have a team, a big team, and you have an analyst on the team that wants to upload the custom data for hedge fund series or private equity series or private credit series, you could have kind of like one person doing that, and everyone else would benefit from having the SMA in the system once it's shared. Let me just show you how it's shared real quickly. So if you go to my data, you go to custom data, you can kind of share this, and then you would share this with your team, and then all the other team members would have that SMA. Cool. So in terms of kind of like our agenda, we just went over all these things. Sorry, custom data series was the webinar. I did want to talk about some upcoming releases or upcoming projects that we're working on. So number one, we do have a way to now upload PDFs and create portfolios from there. It's in beta. So if you do want access to that beta, please email our help desk, help@koyfin.com. You can also email me, rob@koyfin.com, or if you can spell Connor's name, first name, last name, you can email him. It's connor.mcneil@koyfin.com. So any one of those will do, and just say, I want to be permissioned for PDF upload. The way that works is when I click add new, I can now upload from PDF. You would upload a PDF here, and that PDF would be converted into a portfolio. We do have kind of like a process now where if we know the structure of the PDF, it gets automatically converted to a portfolio. If there's something odd that we don't recognize, then it'll take up to 3 days. Usually it's 24 hours for us to convert that PDF. But for those of you that are either inputting values by hand or asking your analyst to input values by hand, this will be a huge time saver that we're going to be releasing to the broader public. And again, if you wanted beta access to test it out and give us your feedback, we'd be happy for you to do that as well. So that's the PDF upload. More integrations. So integrations, so important for advisors. You obviously deal with so many different software systems, including Koyfin. You probably want all that data to talk to each other. And I think one of the kind of things we haven't done is really release a lot of integrations, which is changing. So today, we do have an integration with Schwab. So when you click Add New, and you can add Charles Schwab, and you'd be able to import your accounts from Charles Schwab and into client portfolios. The next integration that we're doing is Altruist, so we'll have an Altruist integration pretty soon. We're also working on Black Diamond, Trade PMR, and Interactive Brokers, and Adapar is the last one. So we are kind of going to be working on those 4 integrations. So stay tuned for that. We'll try to have those out ASAP. And then the last thing I want to share with you is in terms of like what we're going to be working on is something called custom slides for reports. So this is going to be a really awesome feature. Just wanted to kind of show you what that looks like. Maybe what the end product looks like for a report. So one of the things that we hear from advisors is kind of they want to tell a story in their reports. And right now, our reports make it really easy and very effective to tell a story of here's one portfolio, here's the second portfolio, here are the differences. And what we want to do is basically allow advisors to tell a story about the firm and about the market in addition to the portfolios. So kind of this is what our firm does, this is who we are, this is what's happening in the market that might be important to either your situation or to your portfolio, and here's the actual portfolio analytics. So we're adding those 2 components in what we call custom slides, is for you to be able to tell a story about your firm and to be able to tell a story about the market. And let me just kind of like show you what that looks like in a final version. So in a final version, you'll be able to kind of, this is the cover page. This is an example that we created for a company called Avantex, but you'll be able to kind of like create these custom slides with logos, with descriptions in terms of what it is. You'll be able to talk about your advisory team or your research team. So kind of like some info bios. You'll be able to really kind of explain what your company does and the value proposition there. You'll be able to talk about your investment philosophy, your services. So if you wanted to kind of mention services, that would be in there as well. And then you'd be able to get into kind of a story about the market in terms of what are market returns over time of different assets, or maybe you want to talk about pullbacks in terms of when pullbacks happened and why that happened. So I know big part of you as an advisor is to also be a therapist a lot of times when the market goes crazy. So having a chart like this may be something that could be helpful for your clients or your potential clients. Or maybe you wanted to focus on something specific like the yield curve, where you wanted to really explain kind of like why fixed income is attractive or unattractive at this point. Obviously, a pretty technical slide or a very technical kind of piece of information. And you'll be able to kind of mix and match different types of graphs. So let's say you wanted to have 2 graphs on both pages of GDP and inflation, and then talk about kind of like where we are in the cycle. You'll be able to do that as well. So and then this is the regular report of kind of like everything that we went over before that's available in Koyfin today. So you'll be able to kind of create these custom slides, mix and match them, have some templates for bigger firms in case you wanted other people to use them. So pretty excited about this functionality, and we're working on that right now. Cool. So that's kind of like what I wanted to cover. I did want to have before the Q&A, I know a bunch of you have kind of like asked Q&A, but before we get to the Q&A, I did want to kind of like run that poll in terms of the questions that we have. And let's see if I can figure this out. So I'm going to launch this poll. If you could please answer it. Launch. Okay. So we basically have two questions for you to answer. It should be there on the bottom of your Zoom. If you could please answer them, that would be super helpful to us. So question number one is going to be, what's the most integration you want added to Koyfin? This could be a custodian or a portfolio management system or anything else. This is really important to us because, as I mentioned, we have kind of like a ton of integrations that are on our plate. And then we also, there's so many different software providers out there. So if you can kind of, list your either one or two or three integrations that you think are really, really important for you, please do that right now in the webinar poll questions and answer that. And then the second question, a little bit more open-ended, is what's the one thing we can build to make Koyfin better for you? So this could be an issue that you have today, or it could be a data set we don't have today, or it could be anything else. So really, really open-ended, and let us know what Koyfin, what we can build for you to make your job easier. And so maybe you say we should get a new CEO. That would also be an appropriate answer. So whatever you want to tell us, let us know, and we'll try to kind of keep that in mind as we prioritize our roadmap. I'm going to keep those questions open in case anyone wants to fill them out, and we will go to the Q&A in terms of more explicit questions. Okay, so I just have two open questions that I'm going to read out loud and answer for everyone on this call. So is there a way in the historical graph to be able to flip back and forth between percent change and share price? Right now, it's only based on share price. If we want to look at percent for a given time period, have to flip to comparison graph. So yes, there is. Let me show you, Naveen, on how to do that. So I'm going to share the screen. Share. So if you want to kind of like have that functionality, and so that functionality, again, you want to flip between share price and flip and look at the actual performance. So let me just look at SPY here. So, just to give those an overview of kind of the graph functionality, maybe if you're not familiar with it, we have a couple of different graphs in Koyfin. One is the historical graph. This is like the graph that does everything. It has all of our functionality. And so you could add any sort of data series. You could add another ticker and really kind of take advantage of all the graphing in Koyfin. The reason we have the other graphs is they're just a much faster way to accomplish something. So the performance graph is only the performance or the total return of instruments that you put there, because so many people care about total return. This kind of gives you the CAGR and the total return. So this is, a small workflow for graphing performance. We also have the comparison graph where you can. This is really great for comparing cross securities. So if you wanted to compare, let's say, the EV to sales of different stocks or the return on invested capital. The benefit of this graph versus the historical graph is you don't have to input it for each series. So you have your tickers here, your metrics here. So let's say if I wanted to look at PE, I just input that once, and that would calculate the PE for all my different things. Let's say I didn't want to see ROC. So really fast way to kind of compare different things. Naveen, sorry I didn't answer your question yet, but I'll do that right now. So if you want to start with an unsaved template, which should be blank for most of you, just remembers my last setting. What I can do here is I can put in the historical graph. And so this would be kind of like the graph that you mentioned. What I can also do is add another series here called total return. And so that would show me my total return. So Naveen, depending on how you want to look at these, maybe you want to look at these kind of like together. You can also combine them. So if you wanted to combine them, you can combine them here. That's kind of like one way or a way to look at both of these on the same kind of chart or the same axis. You could also save this as a template. So if I save this as a template, so I would save this as price and total return. What that allows me to do is when I kind of come back here tomorrow, so let's say I have Koyfin up tomorrow and I look at the XLY, I don't have to recreate that graph again. That template is going to be here called price and total return. And so these are different templates that I have for Koyfin, like my short interest template, which is the short interest or whatever it is. You can also see some of these templates when you click new. We do give you kind of like the ability to use a predefined template. So if you want to look at revenue growth or valuation or shareholder yield or whatever it is, you could just click when you click new under templates under here. What is it? New under templates. You can create your own, start from scratch, or you can pick one of our predefined templates. So I hope that answers the question. If not, let me know. The next question is any plans, Simon wants to know, any plans to incorporate ChatGPT like features into Koyfin? Great question, Simon. We are working on that right now as well. If you have any ideas in terms of how you would want to use ChatGPT, or if you're interested to kind of send us some thoughts, we'd love to hear from it. I know there's some other products out there that have ChatGPT features. There's ChatGPT. What we want to really, I think, nail down is how do we make Koyfin better at what than what you have today available through ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is. So we're thinking through that right now. If you have any ideas or you want to tell us how you use ChatGPT today, or just want to ruminate on AI, please send me an email, rob@koyfin.com. David wants to know, can you add whether there have been recent analyst earnings per share estimates, upgrades or downgrades on individual stocks, so it's easily visible upon looking at a stock? So David, there's a couple ways to look at earnings per share estimates, upgrades or downgrades. One is on the chart, so you can look at it like if I have a chart and I can go to the historical chart. Again, let me start from unsafe template. What you can do here is you can look at the rolling kind of 12 months estimate, and we're going to show you that every day. That's going to be under analyst estimate, forward estimates, let's say EPS and then NTM. And so what this is going to show me is, unfortunately for NVIDIA, we have a bad data point from our data provider, but you'll be able to kind of like see what that looks like on a chart. Because this is next 12 months and it's rolling, these jumps are probably kind of like new quarters that are being reported. But you'd be able to kind of like see like over the past couple of days, the estimate has been kind of like increased a little bit. Another way to do that is in the predefined chart. So under analyst estimates, estimate trends. This is kind of like exactly what you're asking about. Instead of showing the rolling 12 months, we're going to show you the actual estimates. So this is sales, but we change this to EPS. So this is the estimate for 26, 27, 28, and 29. And you can see kind of like what the estimate revisions there is over time. So this is a quick way to kind of glance through it. The last way to do that is in a watch list or a screener. So in a watch list, if you have a group of stocks, you can put a column here called revision. Revision means the change in the estimate. I'm not in this poll now. The way that you can kind of see that is, sorry, I have a lot of windows here open. If I wanted to add a column here, again, going back to estimate revisions, EPS consensus, average revision. So you could do it for revenue or EBITDA or whatever it is. And then basically you have to choose which year, FY1, FY2, FY3. I like to focus on FY2 just because it gives you a little bit of, out year. So it's anywhere from 12 to 24 months out, and maybe focus on the 3-month revision. So this means what's the percentage change over the past 3 months of the FY2 estimate? I would add that as a column. And then I would now have this, so I can kind of sort this. So here, Coinbase, my FY2 estimate has gone up by almost 100%, Carvana 20%, stuff like that. So remember, when this estimate is like 2 pennies or 3 pennies, this is going to be a big percentage change. If you want to see kind of like what that looks like, you could click on coin and go to the estimate trends. And we should see the FY2 estimate, which is the 2026 over the past, I think we said 3 months, has gone up by about 100%, which makes sense. So it went from like $4 to $8. So it does look like, well, that's how you get to that percentage number. So it does look like Coinbase FY2 estimate increased about 100% over the past 3 months as all this kind of deregulation talk has permeated the market. You can also screen for stocks in the screener. So in the screener, you can kind of look for stocks where those estimate revisions are pretty high. I hope that answers your question. Anthony wants to know, is there a way to compare 3 different portfolios? Currently looking to compare prospects, current portfolio, our proposed portfolio, and a benchmark. So Anthony, there is a kind of a hacky way to look at it. But I think what you want and what we've been asked about before is how do you create like a report, or how do you create a more of like an analysis like this, or in the report feature, how do you create an analysis that's like, showing this for 3 portfolios, I think is what you want to know. There's no way to do that today. The best way that you can do that is in the kind of security analysis. You can compare portfolios on different metrics. So actually, let me go to the, let me select my model portfolio here. So I'm going to use my aggressive growth portfolio, and then go to the comparison graph here. And here I could add, well, here I would do total return, let's say. So let's say I wanted to look at total return, drawdown from peak, and maybe I wanted to look at well, let me just do those 2 things. And so here I could add different portfolios. So I could add my aggressive growth portfolio. I could add my other portfolio. So I would maybe make this my growth portfolio, and then I could look at the SPY. Currently, you can't look at client portfolios in here, so you would have to convert the client portfolio to a model portfolio. But that would be kind of the best way to compare 3 portfolios today. And we will kind of create some functionality that'll allow you to create allow you to compare up to 5 portfolios into a report. So hope that answers your question. Naveen wants to know, when you're showing a total return on price, how did you move the graphs around? Absolutely. So when you're, change this back to a security. Yep. So when you have kind of like these different graphs in the legend, thank you. In the legend, you have these little up arrow, down arrow. So that's the way to control the series. So if I wanted to combine these 2 series, I would just click the up arrow and that would combine it. If I wanted to move this to a new graph, I would click that arrow, and that would create a new graph. So this is where you would create and merge different series. And then we also have, if you wanted to rearrange the series, like if you wanted this to be above, we have these arrows that would kind of like move this to the top. So I know those are a little bit hidden, but that's how you do that. David wants to know, have you considered having an in-person seminar where we can meet other users and get some hands-on help? I think that's a good question. That's a great idea. We've had some kind of local events in Miami where I'm based, but maybe we should do that in some kind of like major cities or metropolitan areas. So that would be a really good idea. David, if you want to email me and tell me where you are, maybe it's near a major city, we can think about scheduling one of the first ones near where you are. So my email is rob@koyfin.com. Where do you build a blended benchmark? So Gary wants to know kind of like where you build a custom benchmark or a blended benchmark. And the way you would do that in Koyfin is you would kind of create you would create a model portfolio and use it as a benchmark. So let's say I wanted my benchmark to be kind of like 90-10 equity bonds. I would basically create my portfolio here. So let's say it's SPY, and let's say it's BND, and I would make this 90, and I would make this 10. And I would probably want to rebalance this every day since this is a benchmark. So this is going to be rebalanced daily. My 90-10 portfolio doesn't have a fee. I would call it 90-10 bonds. And then in here, I would, sorry, I have all these Zoom windows blocking on my thing. Here we go. Create portfolio. So this is my 90-10 portfolio. Now, when I go to create a new portfolio, let's say I wanted to then create my my model. This is my model, and my model is, let's say, Apple and TLT. Let's say it's whatever equal weight. In here is where I would then choose that model portfolio, which was the 90-10 equity bonds. And so that would be my blended benchmark, or that's how I would create my benchmark. So this portfolio is here, my benchmark is here, and then all my analytics would look at the current portfolio versus the benchmark. I hope that answers your question, Gary. David says, I would come down to Miami. Cool. I would love to have you in Miami. Today is a terrible day with a lot of rain, but most of the time it's great here, especially when it's not baseball season. So would love to have you here at some point. Gautam wants to know, is there a way to have multiple cash positions of different currencies in a portfolio or account? Connor, you want to answer that? I feel like you're the cash king. I can maybe, if you tell me what to do, is it in client portfolios?
Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. Let me just read the question. Is there a way to have multiple cash positions? The short answer is today, technically no. There is like a really there is a workaround, but I wouldn't say it's a solution. I can give some context as to why we don't support it today and how we can support it in the future. But maybe if Rob, you want to create a client portfolio with a couple of accounts in it, um, and then put a cash balance in them. And what I'll ask you to do is, yeah, maybe just a couple, put some cash in them. What I've been doing to kind of proxy this is having an account in a portfolio that has like 0.00 some negligible amount of a share in it, so that it's just a cash only account. And then what I'm essentially doing is like aggregating those cash balances in the portfolio. Um, that's the workaround. Maybe I'll help Rob if he gets stuck there a little bit. But the reason we don't support it today is originally when we kind of constructed my portfolio and client portfolio, that kind of style of portfolio that's built upon quantities, cost per shares, and all that kind of stuff, is that we didn't have a way to kind of validate the portfolio without having, securities in there with prices where we could populate market values. The non-technical English answer to that, how we solved that is we basically took the cash balances and we put them in all of the tables, all of the exposure exhibits, so that they now sit alongside, all of your holdings in mutual funds and ETFs. And there's a really technical explanation for that, but the short answer is it now allows us to kind of populate those cash balances everywhere we populate stocks and funds, which means that you could technically have an account with just cash in it. And we would be able to create that account for you. And the reason why I'm saying all of that context is now that we support that, we can also support having, not just one cash account, but you could have multiple cash accounts or cash balances in a client portfolio. So a long way of saying we don't technically support it today, but in the future we can now support it, and it's kind of in our backlog of things to do to improve client portfolios. So that will be coming down the pipeline at some point as well.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for that explanation, Connor. So here's the hacky way, and then at some point we might kind of let you do it in a more streamlined way. Alexander wants to know, is there a way to set portfolio notifications for specific changes in metrics like short interest? Jesus, I feel like everything is being asked, and I'm going to say it's being worked on, but we are working on desktop notifications. So today we have notifications which you can set on your mobile phone. So you can set like a price level or a press release on your mobile phone. We are kind of building out notifications for the desktop where you can create notifications for a security or watch list and ultimately for portfolio. And we are expanding the notification to include stuff like valuation or short interest. So we will have that. It's in the works. Should be out kind of like in the second or third quarter. So thanks, Alex. Naveen's suggestion, if your team can spare some time where a Koyfin person could have 1 hour per week standing time for a session like this, where users can just ask questions, it'd be awesome. There's so much power in the tool I'm just not aware of or know how to use well, and can learn from others' questions. Naveen, thank you for that. I'd say a couple of things. So number one is we have a lot of great YouTube content. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see a really nice Scottish fella go through a bunch of different videos explaining how to do things. His name is Connor, who's on this call as well. But basically, we have a ton of tutorials on YouTube. So if you wanted to kind of, if you have the time to look at those, I know sometimes it's a little bit easier to just ask a person, but as you can imagine, we have a lot of users. If you, Naveen, if you work for a bigger company with kind of a substantial number of users, we do offer kind of like more bespoke training for enterprise users for larger teams. But in terms of being able to do kind of office hours, we will try and do that more. Every week is probably not going to happen, but maybe more monthly. And then you can also ask questions of our help desk, help@koyfin.com. I know sometimes you don't even know what to ask. You just want to understand functionality. The YouTube videos are probably the best place to do that. That brings us to the end of the webinar. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for being a Koyfin user and supporter. We have a ton of amazing functionality coming down the pipeline, which I'm really excited about. And hopefully that'll make your lives easier to really ride out times like this in the market. So have a great day, everyone, and talk to you soon.